What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our Pac-12 football channel.
Does the Pac-12 have a legitimate shot at the college football playoff? So Oregon's got the track record. They've got the resume. They have the one game against Auburn. Yes, it's a loss, but the College Football Playoff Selection Committee is going to take that loss in hand based on a couple of different viewpoints and angles. Number one, that Oregon outplayed Auburn for much of that game. They led 21-6. So they should not be given credit for a victory because they lost the game in the last 9 seconds, 27-21. But Oregon showed that they could play a top-level SEC team and outplay them for much of the game. Now it's going to help Oregon, certainly if Auburn plays well down the stretch and completes a really good season. Oregon has to play Arizona at home. They've got Arizona State. That would be the one possible slip-up. They've got Oregon State to close out in the Civil War showdown against the Beavers. Also, we've got to consider Utah. So both teams, Oregon and Utah, currently have one loss. They're both coming off big wins in the Pac-12 that have cemented their division lead. Utah was able to knock out Washington in Seattle, come back from 14-3 down to win that game 33-28 and take the division lead from USC despite losing head-to-head to the Trojans. Right now, Utah's 5-1 and USC is at 4-2. Oregon with a big win against USC at the Coliseum, 56-24 after falling back 10-0. That appeared to be a game in which USC, coming into the game, had played so well at home that they appeared to be a threat as just a touchdown underdog against Oregon. And the Ducks clearly were the much dominant team in that one. Justin Herbert hit on 21 of 26 passes after misfiring early. He was on his game, and Oregon was top to bottom in dominating the Trojans again, 56-24, giving up 10 early and a garbage touchdown late, and the defense dominated between midway first quarter and fourth quarter for the Ducks. Arizona State, look out for that one as a possible upset, and Oregon State lie ahead for Oregon. For Utah, there is no meaningful win in the non-conference to point to. So they lost to USC. And that loss is looking worse and worse as the Trojans continue to falter at 5-4. USC most likely will finish 7-5. So that's not nearly the loss that Oregon's going to be able to claim in terms of having game control for 50 or 55 minutes, but losing to Auburn. The Utah loss to USC is not good for the Utes because they can't counter with a good non-conference win. They beat BYU. That is not a good non-conference win. Utah's got UCLA. They've got Arizona on the road, and they've got Colorado. What the Pac-12 needs, first and foremost, within the conference, is that they need both of these teams to arrive at the Pac-12 championship game with one loss. They need an 11-1 versus 11-1, top 10 Titanic type Pac-12 championship game. They don't need Oregon coming in at 11-1 and Utah stumbling in at 9-3. They need another quality win for their champion. And their champion, really, for a college football playoff appearance, needs to be Oregon. Oregon's getting more respect. They look better. They've got the better loss. They've got the better wins than Utah. So it needs to be Oregon for the Pac-12 to have a legitimate shot to get to the college football playoff. Obviously, that these situations aren't played and determined in silos. What happens in the Big 12 is going to be key. If LSU loses a close game to Alabama and wins out, and is especially LSU, so it could be either team, Alabama, LSU, the loser, but I point to LSU in particular because they will have the better resume and the better argument of making the playoff if they lose to Alabama, having lost to Alabama on the road, having a tougher conference schedule with Florida on the schedule, and also having a better non-conference win in having a win at Texas. So LSU is the better argument as a non-conference champion of getting to the college football playoff. So that would not be good for the Pac-12 if LSU is the loser in Tuscaloosa, but still maintains a clean slate otherwise and is sitting there with that resume at 11-1, and let's say a 31-28 loss in Tuscaloosa. So that is not good for the Pac-12. Also, of course, the Big 12 sits right now in a situation where there's just so many decent teams playing so many more meaningful games, as we can't even really point to the key games outside of Oklahoma. Baylor seems to be the obvious one, with the Bears undefeated and Oklahoma with just one loss. But there are tons of games left to be played in the Big 12 that could prove to be upsets that are going to help the Pac-12. Oklahoma State, TCU, Texas, Iowa State, Kansas State, all those teams are capable of pulling off upsets or being upset themselves. So Baylor certainly is not a sure thing, as they still have to play Oklahoma and Texas and some other difficult games down the stretch. So what the Pac-12 needs to make it to the college football playoff is they need Oregon to win it out. They need Oregon to defeat an 11-1 Utah team, and they really don't need LSU to be that strong of a contender as a non-champion in the SEC. But yes, the Pac-12 is back in the running and a legit contender for the college football playoff.